For almost a whole year, two of the most powerful jobs in the entire U.S. housing market have been sitting empty. Well, that's finally about to change, but it's not happening without a fight. So let's get into it and break down what's really going on, and more importantly, why it matters for all of us. So, when you think about it, who is actually steering the ship for the massive American housing market? Who's pulling the levers? Well, a huge amount of that power lies with two federal agencies. The Federal Housing Administration, you've probably heard of it as the FHA, and Ginnie. But what happens when the captains of those ships are just missing in action? And that's pretty much exactly the situation we've been in. For the better part of a year, both the FHA and Ginnie have been running without permanent leaders at the helm. And listen, this is more than just some bureaucratic shuffle in Washington. This is a real leadership vacuum, and it can have huge consequences for where our national housing policy is headed. Just look at this timeline. It really tells the story. The Ginnie Mae president left way back in May of 2024. Then the FHA commissioner resigned in January 2025. It took until October, months later, just to hold confirmation hearings. And only in November did the nominees finally squeak past a key Senate committee. That is a long, long time for that much uncertainty at the very top. So what do these two agencies actually do? Well, the FHA is the one you probably know. It insures mortgages, and that's what opens the door to buying a home for so many families who might not qualify otherwise. Ginnie Mae, though, it works more behind the scenes. Think of it as the plumbing of the housing market. It guarantees big pools of these mortgages, making them a super safe investment, and that's what keeps the money flowing through the whole system. Bottom line, both are absolutely critical. Okay, so after that really long wait, we finally have names. We have two people who have been nominated to fill these incredibly powerful jobs. So let's take a look at who's stepping onto the stage. First up for FHA Commissioner is Frank Cassidy. This guy is a veteran of commercial real estate finance. Then, for Ginnie Mae President, we've got Joseph Gormley. He is no stranger to these agencies at all. He served at the Department of Housing and Urban Development during the first Trump administration. And get this, he's already working inside Ginnie Mae as its chief operating officer. As you can probably guess, the entire housing industry has been watching this leadership gap very, very closely. So now that we have nominees, well, the industry has a lot to say about them. The Mortgage Bankers Association, which is a huge voice in the industry, came out with a really strong endorsement for Frank Cassidy. They straight up called him exceptionally qualified. And they gave a pretty similar glowing review for Joseph Gormley, too, saying his leadership would be invaluable for what Ginnie Mae is trying to do. And you're hearing this sense of urgency pretty much across the board. The National Housing Conference told the Senate to move without delay. The message couldn't be clearer. The industry wants these seats filled, and they want it done now. And it's not just the big, broad associations. You can see how specific parts of the market are really invested here. The reverse mortgage industry, for instance, which relies heavily on both the FHA and Ginnie Mae, called its support strong and unwavering. For them, having stable leadership isn't just nice, it's absolutely essential. But it's not all smooth sailing. The path to confirmation is definitely not a straight line. Like with any of these high-stakes political appointments, the support isn't unanimous, and a pretty powerful voice has emerged with a note of caution. And that voice belongs to Senator Elizabeth Warren. She's a key member of the Banking Committee, so her opinion carries a lot of weight. After the hearings, she said that both nominees gave troubling responses to her questions, and that's a huge signal that the final vote might face some serious political headwinds. So let's break down her specific objections. For Gormley, she said he wouldn't even address what might happen to Ginnie Mae if its giant cousins, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, were taken private again. And for Cassidy, her concerns were more about his past policy decisions. She accused him of ignoring what the public had to say, of cutting language access for people, and of supporting cuts to rental assistance programs that millions of families depend on. Okay, so what do we have? We've got this broad industry support on one side, and some very pointed political opposition on the other. But what does all of this really mean for the housing market, for you, for American families? Why does this whole leadership fight actually matter so much? Well, think about it. The future of these agencies touches, well, everything. We're talking about the reverse mortgage market that a lot of seniors rely on. We're talking about federal funding for rental assistance, key policies about language access, and even the fundamental stability of the entire mortgage market. It's all on the line. It all depends on who takes charge and what their priorities are going to be. So where are we in this process right now? The nominees have cleared that big committee vote. That's a major step. But the final hurdle, the big one, is still ahead: a confirmation vote before the entire U.S. Senate. That's the final showdown. That's going to decide if these two actually take office. Which really just leaves us with the million-dollar question. After a year of uncertainty, new leaders are right on the edge of taking the helm of America's housing policy. So, are they going to steady the ship, or will they try to chart a totally new and maybe pretty controversial course? Whatever they decide, their choices are without a doubt going to shape the future of housing and the American dream for years to come.